Point with Brian Fisher on AFR Talk.
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is?
It's hump day.
Woo-hoo!
And it is that. It is hump day right here on Focal Point AFR Talk. As we make it to the midpoint of this week, everything downhill from here to the weekend. Glad you're in the conversation today. Great to have you on board with us. Got a lot we're going to get to. We want to kind of close the loop on the whole Bo Bergdahl situation. More stuff coming out all of the time. And again, I want to give you the big picture before we jump into some of the details here. I want to give you the big picture of what's going on here. We talked about it yesterday and on Monday as well. But this represents one of the most stupendous political miscalculations in the history of politics. Now, what I mean by that is that I'm convinced that President Obama thought that the nation was going to be awash in joy. They were going to be awash in a celebration. There was going to be a celebratory mood that would sweep the country at a man in uniform being delivered from captivity, returned to his family, returned to the United States of America. I think the template for President Obama was what happened in 1980, the day that President Reagan was inaugurated, 52 American hostages released from 444 days of captivity, pictures of them getting on the plane, coming home, received with thunderous welcome, joy, extended arms, tears, the waving of flags. It was an amazingly patriotic experience. President Obama is in deep trouble, and he knows it. He is in horrible shape. He's in horrible trouble. Obamacare completely blown up in his face. I got stories in the stack today, I don't know if I'll have time to get to them, about the continuing unfolding catastrophes with health care in America. This VA scandal has been, on top of everything else, has been a huge drag on the president. I think he was looking for a way to shift the attention of the people, take their attention off of the catastrophe, both of Obamacare and the VA, and and get it off on something else. And so he thought this would be a nice, bright, shiny object. Americans would love him. They would praise him. He's the commander-in-chief that never leaves a man behind on the battlefield, despite the fact that's exactly what he did to the 4 Americans in Benghazi. They got completely left behind, didn't get a stitch of help from this president or anybody in his administration. He's leaving behind this Marine who's rotting in this Mexican prison. He's leaving behind the Christian woman in Sudan who had to give birth in shackles because President Obama apparently does not care enough about her to use the influence and the resources of the American government on her behalf. He's leaving behind Saeed Abedini, who is an American citizen. Not just a Christian, but an American citizen, rotting away in an Iranian prison simply because he is a Christian, committed no criminal act, no immoral behavior. He was there, as a matter of fact, to work on orphanages in the country of Iran. And for that, he has now been beaten and not receiving the health care that he needs. And President Obama seems to be blissfully unconcerned about them, but he thought this was going to be a PR moment. I'll bring him home. Everybody will be excited. There will be ticker tape parades. He will be treated as a hero. His family will be grateful. We'll get into the Rose Garden. They'll have this tremendous reception for him in his hometown when he gets home. And now all of that is completely blowing up in his face. It's completely just collapsing around him, this narrative that he had painted. And he's in bigger trouble now than he was with the VA thing. I think the reason he wanted to get the attention off of the VA scandal is he began to realize how lethal that was to him. And the reason it was lethal is both Republicans and Democrats are veterans. So that's a bipartisan issue because it's not just Republicans that serve in the United States military, but Democrats serve in the United States military as well. So you had Democrats as well as Republicans. You know, when it's going after the Tea Party, he's okay with that because that's conservatives. He's going after conservatives. He's going after his political opponents, and he doesn't care about that. But if he starts getting blowback over something that he knows is going to affect Democrats as well as Republicans, is going to generate blowback from Democrats as well as Republicans, and that's a whole different story. And it's because of the stature that the United States military has in the eyes of the American people, consistently rated out among the very top and most trusted institutions in the United States. So he knew that the VA thing was a lethal thing for him, very problematic. He wanted to try to make that problem go away or divert attention from it by shifting to this bright, shiny object of this returning POW. Well, it's not worked out that way. It's completely gone the other way. Now he's in more trouble even than he was before. Andy McCarthy has written openly that this is an impeachable offense. Judge Napolitano saying exactly the same thing. Let us grab the Judge Napolitano clip. This is clip number 4, Rob. And Judge Napolitano, he's on with Steve Doocy of Fox and Friends. And Steve Doocy brings up this book by Andy McCarthy, who's written an entire book. Andy McCarthy, who is a very gifted prosecutor, very sharp guy, very bright mind, legally sharp, been a guest on this program a number of times because of his insight and his understanding and his expertise. And Andy McCarthy's written an entire brand new book just released yesterday that lays out the complete case for the impeachment of President Obama. It makes the legal and constitutional case for the impeachment of President Obama. Now, Andy McCarthy is quick to say, look, I'm not saying this is going to happen because there has to be political will on the part of the American people. There have to be a sufficient number of Americans who are so outraged at the conduct of this president that they insist that their elected representatives do something about it. You had that with Richard Nixon. The reason he never even had to be impeached is there was such a groundswell of outrage, so united from all corners of the globe, that he was forced to resign. He really had simply no choice. If he was going to be impeached, handwriting was on the wall, he would be tried, he would be convicted, and he would be run out of office. So Andy McCarthy understands you got political realities here, but this is how you build a bonfire. You build it one little stick, one little log, one little twig, one little branch at a time. And, you know, this whole thing about the release of these hostages, this came up before after Andy McCarthy had written his book. It was too late to add it to his book. His whole book is the case for the impeachment of President Obama. If you were going to do it, if you had the political will to do it, would you have the justification for it? Would you have the legal basis for it? Would you have the constitutional basis for it? Would you have the moral basis for it? Answer to all those questions is a resounding yes. And Andy McCarthy lays out the whole scenario, the whole case for it in the book. And all that, the fact that President Obama has committed a series, he's a serial offender against the law. He's committed a multiple number of offenses, all of which would merit impeachment. Now, on top of it, he has what Andy McCarthy thinks is the worst thing he's done yet, releasing these Talibanis to go back to the battlefield. Now, anyway, here is Judge Napolitano, and Steve Doocy brings up Andy McCarthy's book with Judge Napolitano, and here's what Judge Napolitano says about the issue of impeachment. Let's listen.
Andy McCarthy, a friend of this program, has got a new book out. He said yesterday...
He says the president should be impeached for this.
That's what he does say. He says it's crimes and misdemeanors.
In my view, it's a very, very valid argument that people are going to start talking about. Look, the last time a president was impeached, it was a disaster, and it was arguably over nonsense. This is far, far more serious.
But here's the thing, too. Where's the president's political benefit? I don't see any Democrat going, look at I'm so proud of my president for giving up, getting a deserter back in exchange for 5 hardened killers.
That is the head scratcher as to why they did this. It doesn't make sense from their own point of view. Democrats will begin to flee from this president. The Democrats who already believe they're going to lose the Senate and lose even more seats in the House now are probably not even going to want him to come in their districts and campaign for him.
So Judge Napolitano says, look, the people that are arguing that this is an impeachable offense have a very, very, very good case. Now, he's talking about the impeachment of Clinton, said that was a nothing burger. He's wrong about that. President Clinton lied under oath. He committed perjury. That is a serious, serious crime. In God's eyes, it's a moral crime, and it's a crime against our law. It's a felony offense to take an oath before Almighty God and tell a bald-faced lie. In fact, under the Mosaic Code of Israel, if you told a lie under oath, then your penalty was to suffer whatever punishment would have been handed out to the person you were testifying against. In other words, if it was a murder case and you perjured yourself, you lied, with the result being that if your testimony had been accepted, that guy would have forfeited his life, then that's what would happen to you. That's how serious perjury is in the eyes of God. So it wasn't a nonsense impeachment of President Clinton. Very, very profound. He's the chief embodiment of the law in America. If he can perjure himself, get away with it, then there's no foundation for our legal system or testimony or establishing the truth on the basis of witness. So it was actually very, very important. But, you know, Judge Napolitano says, look, they've got a very, very good case. He says it's a head-scratcher to me why President Obama did it. And these guys don't seem to understand what I've just laid out for you. It's perfectly understandable why President Obama did this. He thought this was going to make him Reagan bringing home the Iranian hostages. And as I said yesterday, he's turned into Barney Fife bringing home Benedict Arnold. That's what it's turned into. He didn't imagine it. Chuck Todd said today, look, this thing has caught them completely flat-footed. In fact, let's back up and grab that montage. I got a montage of liberal reaction. This is clip number 2, Rob. This is a montage of a bunch of liberal people in the media, and you see how quickly they have turned on President Obama because there is literally nothing defensible about what President Obama did here with regard to Bo Bergdahl. So you're going to hear from NBC, you're going to hear from CNN, you're going to hear from ABC, you're going to hear from CBS. All of these are mainstream media outlets, not a conservative one in the bunch, not a Fox News in the bunch, and this is the take of liberals in the media to what President Obama has done. Let's listen.
Did the president break the law by engaging in this deal?
Oh, I think he clearly broke the law.
You believe the president broke the law?
Absolutely.
Does the president feel as though on this issue and this kind of issue he's above the law?
But I think what bothers people is having our commander-in-chief on television putting a glow of euphoria around the return of this guy.
One guy saying I'm, quote, off about this because he believes that Bergdahl is a deserter.
They did not expect this criticism of the attempt to go get Bergdahl in the way that it was done, and that it appears to be what's caught them off guard, and that's why I think they look like they're on their back feet on this.
Why did Susan Rice say he served with honor and distinction? It was clear to the military as soon as he left what had happened.
There has to be a sense of disappointment down there, Andrea, because these 5 men who were let go were categorized as indefinite detainees.
These are very seasoned strategic leaders of the Taliban.
U.S. military assessments of the 5 senior Taliban leaders made 6 years ago found a high risk to the U.S. if any of them were set free.
I think there are a couple of issues here. One is negotiating with terrorists, and 2 is the issue with the law, and thirdly is really what is the message it sends around the world.
This is going to strengthen the Taliban. It is a big win for them.
What it won't do and can't do is stop them from playing a significant role with the Taliban in the more distant future.
You can't say that they'll be back with the Taliban in a couple of years. You can't say that that won't happen. You can't tell us.
I don't predict the future, Keith.
So every one of those, a liberal outlet expressing various degrees of shock at what President Obama has done here. Focal Point AFR Talk. We'll be back in 2 minutes.